right? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, well, then there's got to be a woman around here somewhere, isn't there? He goes, I'm not married. He goes, we're not married? He goes, no. Well, then we're a pilot, right? Because we always wanted to be a pilot. He says, I'm not a pilot. So the little guy goes, so we don't have a dog. We're not married. And I'm not a pilot. You mean I grow up to be a loser? I mean, think about it, people. Think about your dreams when you were young. Have you attained them? I mean, my dad's still trying to get over that his son's a hairdresser. But what happened during the movie was his girlfriend and he got together and he said something to her, she got upset, and he goes, wah, 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 you're with such a bad guy. And she said, you know, I don't feel sorry for me, I feel sorry for you because you could have been so good. You could have been so good, right? I always say the difference between good and great is the fact that once you think you're good, you'll never be great. Because you settle, don't you? You settle. If you think you're good at something, you never push yourself to go further. But guess what? We can change, can't we? We can do things that we probably have never done. We can push ourselves into levels that we've never been. And we can, because the only thing, people, that holds us back is the 6 inches between our ears, doesn't it? That's what holds us back from good to great. Because I can talk myself. Can't you talk yourself into all kinds of stuff? I can. I'm great at it. I can talk myself into all kinds of stuff. I want that cookie. No, you don't. Yes, I do. Guess what? I eat the cookie. But I mean, can't you talk yourself in? I don't want to do hair color because it's too hard. I don't want to sell shampoo because they may say no. Am I right? Is that how we think sometimes? As I said, the difference between good and great is the 6 inches between our ears. That's the part you have to understand. Now, I read a lot because I fly a lot. So I read a book called 212 Degrees. And what it said was at 211 degrees, water is what? Just warm water, right? But at 212 degrees, it boils. And all of a sudden now, with that 1 degree difference, what happens is that it creates what? Steam. And when it creates steam, what happens then? It creates power, doesn't it? So you look at it and you say, well, with that 1 degree from warm to boiling to steam to run a locomotive, what is the one thing we can do to make ourselves 1 degree better? Right? What can we really do? Because like I said, the difference between good and great is up here. What can we do? Because I know you can all do one thing, right? To change yourself. Now, as the movie went on, Bruce Willis and his 8-year-old self were sitting in a restaurant, and a dog runs up, licks the little boy on the face, and all of a sudden you hear in the background, Chester, and the dog runs out. Well, they both look at each other and go, Chester? Well, they run outside, and they're in the distance is an airplane with a family and a dog and a guy walking at him in a hat. It was Bruce Willis at 70. And he said, I bet you got a lot of questions. He goes, yeah. He goes, well, you got 30 years to figure it out. You got 30 years to figure out. Somewhere in those 30 years, he became a pilot. He got a family. And that was the part, and got married. So that was the part of the movie where the greatest part to me was right at the end. He drives up in the driveway of his girlfriend, picks up a puppy, and walks in. He decided to change immediately, right? He decided to change immediately. He didn't want to wait any longer, because the difference between people, I don't care if you're 22 or 82, you can change if you want. And that's the thing, like I said, at every time in the day, I've had to make changes in my life now, and you can imagine having Logan, right? That's a big change, having a new baby in a house. I'm sorry, I get emotional every time I start on that. But you can understand what I'm saying, don't you? Is that we can change what we want to whenever we want to. It really is our choice, isn't it? All right, well, let's go through some things about making money. Is that okay? We want to talk about making money, because making money is important for us as hairdressers, isn't it? And making money is much easier sometimes, and much easier than we think sometimes, because part of the opportunity part that I talked about at first was really more about the opportunities of upselling services. Am I right? Because as hairdressers, we make money three ways, don't we? I mean, we do hair, we sell retail, right? And then we get tips, don't we? And the great thing about tips is that we get bunches of them, don't we? I used to determine how good of a day I had by how big the wad was in my pocket at the end. That used to determine how good my day was when I was cutting hair, right? I mean, don't we all do that? And then the greatest part about tips is we can go out that night and spend them all, and guess what? The next day, our pocket fills up again. I mean, aren't tips cool? Tips, we make bunches of them. I did. Yeah. But see, the thing about it, with tips being a big portion of our income, that's the part of the point where we talk about making money that is so important. Is that we talk about the fact that part of our business is not necessarily just what's on our W-2. Now, the thing about tips is it's kind of the thing where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And what I mean by that is that if you don't claim your tips, there's going to be a day as your life progresses, like I said, where you're going to want to buy a house, aren't you? And what happens is if you don't claim everything that you do, and I know you do, but I'm just kind of giving you the example, is that if you don't claim it, what happens is you're going to get a loan, and they go, well, you don't make what you say you make. And they say, well, I make tips. And they go, well, where are they? Right? Because they're not there. And that's the part where I say, you know what? As life progresses, you start looking at those. Because tips are something that are very, very important that you have to realize that to increase your business, and isn't it the better you feel that day or the better you look that day, the more tips you make? Isn't it funny? I mean, you can look a certain way one day and feel good all the time and make a bunch of money, can't you? And that day you feel kind of schleppy, you don't make as much, do you? But then when I talk about cutting hair, and I talked about the opportunities earlier about cutting hair, that's something where once we raise our color business, doesn't it make sense that we'll make more money off of doing hair color? In other words, you have to work smarter, not harder, right? And what I'm going to talk about in this section here is that I'm going to show you basically the difference between just doing haircuts and how much you would make, just doing haircuts with one hair color a day and how much more you would make, and then doing just haircuts and 3 colors a day. And what I'm going to show you is not necessarily that you have to do more people. Again, what I said earlier is it's not how many you do, it's what you do with what you have, right? And I'm going to prove to you in a few minutes. Now, retail sales is a big part. Sometimes we don't think of it, do we? But the biggest thing about retail, the part that bothers me the most, is the one word that I really hate hearing. It's called diversion, isn't it? Because you can go into a lot of places now and find hair care products, can't you? That are supposed to be professional hair care products. You can go to Target, you can go to Walgreens, you can go to a lot of places to find it. But guess what? They really need to come in our salon and get it. And the greatest thing that I see in our company, in the Regis Corporation, is private label products. That make sense? Private label products. Now, in Cost Cutters, we have private label products, correct? Now, the reason I say that is because the one thing they can do, this is the only place they can get it, isn't it? And when we talk about the big circle about making money, we talk about retaining clients. The part you have to remember is that when you're retaining clients, chances are, if they have your shampoo and conditioner in their shower, the chances are they'll think about you when they take a shower. Wait, that sounds icky. Well, you know what I mean, right? I mean, you know, yeah, there's no good way to say that. So, I mean, but as far as retaining your clients, that's one of the things that if they come to Cost Cutters, that's the only place they can pick up that product, right? Because when you're talking about making money, you're really talking about the fact that the best way to make money is through how do we retain people? We talked about building our salon culture, right? I mean, getting that culture to a point where your people are excited to come to work. Then we start into the opportunities of making money. We talk about, again, color, waxing, shampoo, conditioner. Our number one product in our group is flat iron spray. Isn't that weird? Flat iron spray is our number one product. The reason I say that is what's weird about it is we do 65% men. Isn't that weird? That our number one product is a styling aid for straightening hair. So that would mean who buys it most of the stuff? The women do, don't they? And that's kind of the odd part. We have 65. So we have opportunities yet that we haven't even got to. Our number one shampoo and conditioner is Color Care shampoo and Color Care conditioner. That's our number 1 and 2 shampoo and conditioner. And the funny part about that to me is that, you know what? We do 12% color. What happens is, as we do more and more color, what happens is women start building up in our stores, don't they? The color business gets bigger, doesn't it? And there's a bigger need for color shampoo. Where you would think in a company or a group of salons that has 65% male clientele that they're not doing as much color, but we're selling a bunch to women, aren't we? So it's interesting. Our sales get stronger and better. So making money is important. It's not what you do, it's what you do with what you have. Everybody has that, don't they? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to show you a pay plan. Now, I want to show a pay plan because as hairdressers, we're visual people, aren't we? I mean, we need to see things to really understand how they work. And they're going to be passing out some papers that we can take a look at a pay plan. That again, now the thing I want you to understand is this is totally fictitious. This is an example of a pay plan. It's not your pay plan. It's just a pay plan that I put together for this. We're just going to take a second till everybody gets them. Because I think it's really important to understand how you're paid. Because if you don't understand how you're paid, it's pretty hard to really understand how it works. Am I right? If you don't understand how the pay plan works, sometimes it's very hard to understand how you get paid. And you really should know how big your check's going to be before you get it. Shouldn't you? I mean, you should really understand how it works. Now, I'm going to grab one right here and just kind of show it to you. And I'm going to take one also. Now, if you look over to the bottom in the right, where it says tips, it says if I did 75 haircuts in a day, if you did 75 haircuts in a week, times $2 would be $150 for that week. Everybody follow where I'm at? Now, the interesting thing, and the thing that I want to talk about with this person, this is just a fictitious stylist that works 35 hours a week and does 15 haircuts a day, okay? And that's how we're going. So if we look at that and say 75 haircuts in a day times $2, and again, that's just a number, it's $150 a week, right? So if you look at tips, I mean, the great thing about tips is we use them for stuff, don't we? We buy stuff with our tips, don't we? So if you look at it, if you take $150 a week times 52 weeks, it's $7,800. Now, what I said is just for fun. I said because I know that it's the way that it's taxed, I just added 20% to it to say if when you claim all your tips, they're $9,360. Everybody follow where I'm going? Okay. Now, if you go into the middle and you look at level 1, all right? Now, again, this is a fictitious person, and I use $7 an hour as a base rate, times 35 hours is $245. Now, if it's $245 times 52 weeks, it's $12,740. Now, the reason I have emergency fund there is because that if you're only making the base rate, it's an emergency. You better get going, right? You got to make more money. Because if you're only on base rate, we got to get you to the next level. Follow me? So if we take that, so it's $12,740. Tips are $100 a week, so it's $5,200. Retail sales, I said you make 5%. You sell 5%, you make 10% commission. You make $18,190 your first without just kind of showing up. Does that make sense? Anybody make that last year? Anybody? Okay. Well, let's go to level 2. Now, this is for just haircuts. Okay, now we're just talking about haircuts. Now again, it's 15 people a day, 75 per week. At $12.95 a haircut, they do 75 haircuts, it's $971.25. Divided by your hours, which is 35 hours, equals $27.75 per hour. Now you go over to the chart, and you look at the chart, and you make $9 an hour. Now you take that times 52 weeks, you make $16,380. Now if you look at the tip chart, I put those tips in there, you make $9,360. Now I said you sold 15% sales to service, you get 10% commission on that, you make $642, you make $26,382. All right, everybody following me? Okay. Now here's where the fun starts. Now this is, what I'm saying to you now is that this is doing one color a day. Now I'm saying one color a day on those 15 people. I'm not saying you have to do more people, right? I'm just saying on one of those people that come in your and sit in your salon, sit in your chair, we do one color. Now what I call that is $35. I just said $35. I don't care if it's a color, I just use that because it's easier. It could be waxing, it could be shampooing, it could be all kinds of things. As long as you accumulate $35 more per client, or not per client, for the once per day for $35. Okay? So let's go through that. Because what happens is now you add $175 more a week to your tickets, and you bring that to $1,146.25. You divide that by your hours, you make $402.50. Okay? Times 52 weeks, you make $20,930. Just doing one more color a day. Now, your tips go up because what I said is normally when you do a color, you get a little bit more in tips, so I gave you $5 more per day. Okay? So now you make $10,920. You sell 15% sales to service, you make 10% commission on that. You make $774. You make $32,624. You make about almost $7,000 more by doing not more people, just more with the ones you have. Everybody follow? Now here comes the big one. Now you're doing 3 people, 3 colors a day on your people. And the greatest part is we have tons of people out there that do it. They do it. They do 3 colors a day. Now again, we're only doing 15 people. You're not doing more people. You're just doing more with the ones you have. Now you look at it. Now you're adding $525 more on your tickets a week. Now you're at $1,196.25 divided by 35 hours. You're at $42.75 per hour. Look over at the chart. Now you're making $16.50 an hour. You're making $577 times 52 weeks. You make $30,030. Now you look at it and you say, well, my tips, of course, go up a little bit more because, again, you're doing more. Am I right? So you look at it now, you're making $14,040. You sell 15% commission. I'm sorry, you sell 15% sales to service. You get 10% commission. You have $1,052 in retail commissions. You make $45,122. Anybody make that last year? Okay. So in theory, what happens is we're going basically from making $26,000 to just from cutting hair, we're going to $45,000 by adding just 3 colors. Again, not on more people, just doing the ones we do, right? Does that make sense? Now, one of the things that I want to talk about this is making that kind of money, is that one of the most important things, or the one thing that if I can teach you anything today, if I can teach you one thing today, this is going to be it. You ready? Keep track. The reason I say keep track is we really don't know how much money we make, do we? We really don't know because we don't keep track of what we do. Am I right? We don't really keep track of what we do. So day to day when we talk about tips, we really don't know how much we have. People say, Dennis, I need a raise. I say, how can I give you a raise? You don't know what you make now. Am I right? The thing about it is that keeping track of everything you do, like I said, if you can learn one thing today, if you start keeping track of what you do every day in the store, you will then all of a sudden know how much you're making. Right? Because we don't know, do we? Because when I see